Welcome back to Robbing Minds. We're looking at the hotly anticipated event of 2023 on this segment of the show, and I'm talking about Nigeria Decides 2023. Everywhere across the country and in the diaspora, the presidential elections have been on the mouths of so many Nigerians. But do you get a sense that it's all about the presidency, who's going to occupy the #1 seat in Aso Rock? Yet there are other elections that will take place in 2023. We're looking at State House of Assembly, Federal House of Representatives, the Senate, and I could go on and on to list the different political positions or that we will be electing people into. So looking at voter sensitization, looking at a lot of advocacy to get that PVC. If you joined us earlier on the program, both guests really emphasized on the need to get that voter's card. But really, when we're looking at 2023, what factors will shape the general elections? To discuss with me, I have someone in the studio this time. I'm so happy. We have a political analyst and author, Achude. Welcome to Robbing Minds. And we also have joining us virtually Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari. Welcome to Robbing Minds. It's good to see that you were able to... Thank you for joining us virtually. It's good to see that you were able to join us in the studio, speaking about the field challenges and a lot of the issues Nigerians are facing. But I'll go straight into it. Do you feel, and I'm going to pose this question to Achude, that Nigeria still runs a two-party system despite the fact that we'll see many logos on the ballot sheet? Do you think that a third party can emerge in the 2023 elections, or will it be business as usual with the two major parties going head-to-head?
Well, obviously, it's been essentially a two-party system from 1999 to date, apart from the few incursions into political office by a few of the other parties, like the ABGA, for instance. Of course, we used to have the AMPP at a time, and then you had this merger. And then, ever since then, it's been the PDP and then the APC. So those have been the two dominant political parties. And it appeared from the onset of these campaigns for 2023 that the situation was going to remain the same. But from what we have seen, if you're looking at it in terms of the political barometer, in terms of the incursion into the politics of, electoral politics of the Labour Party and then the candidate of the Labour Party, P2B, as well as the NNPP of Kwankwaso in Kano, it's obvious that it's not going to be the usual parade.
Okay,
of,
I would like to...
dominant political parties. So definitely that scenario is going to change. After the 2023 election, Nigeria, the polity will no longer be what it has been all along.
So we're looking at a third and a fourth and a fifth party coming up strong. Ambassador Gabari, do you agree? Do you believe that we're going to move away from this two-party system to actually see the other parties playing a huge role, not just geopolitically, but across the nation in the coming elections?
Yes, thank you very much for having me, first of all. It's a dicey one. I always tell people that with Nigerian politics, even if you have a PhD in political science, it's very hard to predict. We've seen what just happened in Ekiti, and then we've seen what's transpired even within the primaries. And I've always said that the political structures also start from the primaries, and we're not looking at that, the party primaries, because that is where everything starts and ends. So if you don't have money to lobby delegates, we probably might lose a better candidate because of financial burdens and all of that. So sometimes it's really not about whether we have multiple parties or whether it's APC or PDP. We should be also looking at how do we begin to strengthen for citizens to begin to call for the third force, because sometimes even the third force might not have the kind of structure or the kind of financial weight that the first twos have. You know, everywhere in the world, you could have multiple parties, but when the chips are down and when push comes to shove or shove comes to push, like they always say, everything is laid on the table. For me, I will also say that I was also looking at, leveraging on the NSAS issue. I was also looking at that by now, young people would have, come together, form a strong, it may not even be a political party, but form a strong force. And by now, we should know that in 2023, these are things young people are projecting and they want to push forward.
So it's safe to say that you're not happy with the quality of the leaders who have come out from the primaries? Are you saying you're expecting maybe a youth leader to have emerged, or do you feel that we're still being presented with the usual? It's still business as usual? And I would like to pose that to Achude.
Well, I think we should be careful, when we talk about, youthful. Obviously, you must have youthful participation in politics because they are the ones that make the world go around. They have the capacity, they have the energy, for positives or for negatives. If you look at some of the things that are going on in the country today, I mean, you are talking about acts of insecurity and violence and so on. It's always the younger generation. And it's always the younger generation that the politicians also use for such purposes. And so the politicians know also how advantageous it will be to curry them, to curry their favors and all of that. But we've also had, the very positive things, achievements that Nigerian youth have been able to do. Of course, in Nigerians are naturally, when it comes to, whenever Nigerians set their mind to doing things, they do it and they do it well. And so our youths have shown that capacity for leadership, and that capacity for commitment. We were not so much confident about our youths all this while until NSAS happened. And then they began to pose not just questions that had to do with police brutality, but political questions. And it was at that moment that we realized that, look, they have been following the trend of things in the country. And ever since, they have remained engaged within the system. And so, but that is not to glorify, youthfulness when it comes to, responsibility, for instance. Some have not been too responsible, because while we had the positives with the NSAS, we also had the negatives that were also used to destabilize the NSAS. And they were the youths, majorly. But don't forget that from 1999 till date, in fact, the first set of political leadership, especially at the level of, governors, were essentially youths. We had one that was 38 years. Most of them were under 45 years, most of them. And so what was the outcome of their various, political engagements in their respective states? Not fantastic. So we should be...
So we should look at this objectively.
We should look at it objectively. Okay. We should be balanced. I think what is, of primary import, really, should be of primary import, is the moral and ethical, disposition of people who aspire to leadership.
Whether they're young or
whether
old,
they are young
and
or
not
old.
Just using age as a criteria.
Yes.
I'll move to Ambassador Gabari, and my question looks at the just concluded Ekiti elections. For a lot of people, they've been really impressed with in the timeliness of the elections, and even the fact that you could argue that a third force emerged as second position. So looking at Ekiti elections, do you believe that this is what we should expect in the coming elections in terms of our preparation for 2023?
Yes, thank you so much for that. But let me also quickly just chip in from where my last guest said. Development is deliberate. So let's not say whether it's an old person or a young person. Women, youth, young people should be brought into play because we are all citizens. It doesn't matter whether the person is older or younger. We must have deliberate development in saying, okay, this number of things, the youth should be included. This number of things, women should be included. You can't always have people who have been in, come on, people who have been in the political space for 30 years. They grew over time. How come young people can vote and they can't be voted for? Anyway, the one for Ekiti, it's an example, but you also know there have been pockets of accusations, counter-accusations, allegations of vote buying and all of that, which I've always said that it may not stop. Because I go back again to what I said about primaries. We all saw what happened during the delegate turning vote and all of that. So if that can't stop, if money lobbying can't stop even from the party primaries of who comes out or who emerges at the flag, as a flag bearer of the party, how do you want that to stop from the citizenry? You know, but it's a good thing. And like I've always said, even if you have a PhD in political science, with Nigeria, it's something different and dicey. But I must commend INEC and everyone for all of that. But like I said, it's a work in progress, and we need to constantly keep going. But we must not just say, because young people have been given opportunities before, then it's not necessary again. How do you even groom these ones? Even in organizations, there is always leverage for
so there needs to be a deliberate attempt to ensure that young people participate in the political process beyond just voting, but have the chance to aspire to elective positions. Yeah. I'll move to you, Achike. I want us to look at issues-based campaigns. In the 2023 elections, do you see Nigerians having the opportunities to see our political leaders debate these issues? Or, like the guest said, that it will still be about money, it will still be about vote buying and who has the most money to pay for the votes? Yeah,
let me look at it. Maybe a little bit of what he said about deliberate, politics and policies and all that. I agree absolutely. But we should also know, if we are talking about deliberate, political action and all that, on whose part? On the part of the youth, on the part of those people who...
I think on the part of the political parties to ensure that young people have a fighting chance.
But there's a truism that power is never given, power is taken. And so we must have that at the back of our mind. And that was why Obasanjo was admonishing the youths recently, because this country is also theirs. In fact, they have a greater stake in the country because they are younger. They have a longer way to go, so they have much more to lose. And that's why, and you are beginning to see activities, even with regards to the politics of the day, among the youthful population everywhere in an unprecedented and revolutionary manner. You can see what is happening, for instance, on social media. You can see what is happening, with youths everywhere trying to, make the necessary sacrifices to get their PVCs and all of that. So these are deliberate. I want to believe that it's also part of what he's saying. These are deliberate action on the part of the people, and that comes from a recognition that we cannot continue to be what we have been in the past. We cannot continue to be lackadaisical about the things that touches us, the things that touch us most, because they are critical, they are fundamental, not just to our well-being for today, but for tomorrow and for future generations to come. And I think that in itself, is a wonderful thing. And then
so the question on issue-based campaigns, are we going to see
on issue-based,
or is it vote buying?
There's no choice, really. And I think Nigerians also, because already the issues have been presented. A few of the candidates are beginning to make their campaigns purely issue-based. Some of them are talking about unemployment. Some of them are talking about energy generation. Some of them are talking about the insecurity in the country, and all of that. So that puts pressure on the usual kind of politics, of just total money. When you have money and you are able to pay your way, to buy your way, then you get into power. So that has forced some of them to begin to respond with regards to their personal or party manifestos and all that. So it is being driven by the youths, because they're asking questions. You have been there in the past. What were you able to do, with regards to electricity, with regards to insecurity, with regards to this and all that? So they have no choice. And again, I think one of the good things that we have seen in the past few years is the elevation of political engagement, either at the level of presidential debates or governorship debates, which your organization, Channels Television, has been very much involved in.
So we're going to expect to see more engagement. I would like to move very quickly to Ambassador Gabari, and it's to look at voter apathy. We're still looking at low turnout of voters, and more importantly, there seems to be a concentration on just that #1 seat in Aso Rock. What about voters coming out to vote in the governorship elections, State House of Assembly, even down to the ward, ensuring that they know and they vote for their councillors? What are the issues and how can they be addressed?
I think probably that citizens have lost hope. It's all, if you follow campaign promises, you would think Nigeria will become a heaven, So you come to tell me that, Ambassador, come and vote for me. I will make you the minister, or I will do this for your family, and I do my part. And then 4 years down the lane, you don't do what you promised me. Next time when you come up, naturally, I'll look at you twice and just be like, okay, continue. When you are through, let's know what to do. So I think also that our politicians need to do better. It's not even about the campaigns. It's not about the promises. These things should be evidence-based. People want to wake up every morning and be able to see that there's food for them. There's so much poverty. I go to rural areas where I do researches and where I do a lot of documentaries. You find people who can't eat. There's a whole lot there. So when we even talk about political thuggery and all of that, how do you even want a youth not to be a thug? When he's not eating for a while, the parents are there, they've not done anything, and the politician comes and throws one few thousands of naira. That will sustain. And then people keep saying, don't sell your vote, don't sell your vote. Do you know how much that 5,000 naira will do for a rural woman? You know, so this empathy thing will always be there because these people are in the rural areas. They know all of these things. A politician will take roads that are not good and go for campaigns and tell a market woman that, you know what, we will build new market for you, we'll do all of this. You tell the same youth that when you get into office, I will make you my special advisor, I will do XYZ for you. And you only use them during elections. And after then, you say, oh, youths are restive, they are not equipped enough, they are not this, they are not that. And then after 4 years, you come back.
And we'll see the same cycle repeat. I'll allow Achude to respond to that in terms of the justification of people looking for support, looking for the ability to feed themselves before they can engage in these issues. How are we going to go beyond bread and butter politics when people have to think about their daily needs and survival coming into the 2023 elections?
Well, there are no two ways about that. It's about expanding the civic space, really, and you don't expand the civic space by engaging in anti-democratic practices. And obviously, the buying and selling of votes is an anti-democratic practice, which the people, you know, on a very wide level are, exposed to, and indulging in. We understand the justifications. You know, it is said that the first law of nature is survival, but then what is the nature of survival when you talk about somebody who collects 10,000 naira to sell his vote, and then in the next 4 years he loses maybe 100,000 from the same politician because he's going to recover it from him. So we need a lot of voter education, because the reality is that coming into the period where you collected the 10,000 naira, you had not died of starvation. Obviously, you're not going to die of starvation in the next 4 days or 5 days or 6 days. So, I mean, all of these things come. They say there is no gain without pain. So if we are not ready for the pain, then we shouldn't be ready for the gain.
So the question is, are Nigerians ready for the pain?
They must be ready for the pain. That sacrifice must come from them, and that is why the enlightenment must continue. I understand, you know, the reasons behind that. Somebody looks at 10,000 naira, he knows, look, 10,000 naira will solve the immediate problems we have today and tomorrow. But we must be able to let them know that you're going to pay a much heavier price for this 10,000 naira that you're collecting. And so we must be able that they must be ready to make that sacrifice for a better tomorrow. Because when they have a better tomorrow, they are not talking about 10,000 naira for a day. They are talking about perhaps 100,000 naira in a week or whatever. So it's a much better life. It's a much better situation for them, but only they can make it possible. Look, INEC, I was in Ekiti State as an observer. And I would say once, I mean, the institutions of state did fairly well. You're talking about INEC, much more improved than what we saw in the, Abuja municipal council election, and in Anambra State, I was in Anambra State, so vastly improved. The conduct of the policemen, with a few deviants, fantastic, about 100% turnout before 9 o'clock. So this was fantastic. The only failure we had was from the political class. They were the ones that engaged and indulged in the things that they had always indulged in, and that is to subvert the political process by inducing voters, which is clearly a crime.
So we'll have to bring the conversation to an end, but I can definitely see the excitement in the 2023 elections coming up. Indeed, we need to still do more when it comes to voter sensitization so that people can see the long game, long run, the implication of selling their votes. I have to say a big thank you to political analyst and author Achude for being our guest today on Robbing Minds, and also to Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari for joining us virtually on Robbing Minds. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Robbing Minds will be returning shortly after this break. Join us again.